Hello students, welcome to LODLC lecture series on MKT 309 Management Theory, study section 11. The title of today's topic is Contingency Theory. Introduction. Contingency is one strand of the contemporary management perspective. Consequently, when contingency theory started to develop, rather than seeking universal principles that apply to every situation, contingency theory attempts to identify contingency principles that prescribe actions to take depending on the characteristics of the situation. In this study section, you will learn about the historical development of contingency theory. Factors affecting contingency are also explained in this unit. Contingency approaches to management and behavior, and an appraisal of the contingency theory are undertaken in the later part of this study section. Outline of study section 11. When you have studied this section, you should be able to 1. Define and explain the growth of contingency theory. 2. Discuss the factors influencing contingency theory. 3. Explain contingency approaches to leadership and management behavior. Overview of contingency model. Contingency theory is an organizational theory that claims that there is no best way to organize a corporation, to lead a company, or to make decisions. Instead, the optimal course of action is contingent, that is, dependent upon the internal and external situation. One of the earliest pioneering studies that helped establish contingency theory was developed in the 1950s by a research team led by Joan Woodward, an industrial sociologist. In the study, 100 British firms with different sizes and product lines were studied to determine whether the better performing companies adhere more closely to classical principles such as unity of command than did companies with average or below average performances. When their studies using the classical principle did not yield any result, they shifted to the type of technology used by the companies. Details on that will be explained further in this study section. Woodward argues that complex organizations function as open systems, and in order to reduce the uncertainties caused by the external environment, organizations' behavior to protect their technical core. The underlying assumption is that organizations and subunits with similar technologies and environments will exhibit similar behavior in the form of structures or organizational design. Another contingency theorist was Duncan. His model attempted to identify the characteristics of the environment which contribute to decision unit members experiencing uncertainty in decision making. He was of the opinion that both internal and external factors have impact on perception of decision of members. He submits that the structure and the behavior of the particular organizational unit or subsystem is a function of the following. 1. What happens within the unit. 2. What happens within external unit of the organization. And 3. What happens within the internal unit of the organization. Contingency factor. You have learned about the focus of contingency theory, that appropriate managerial action depends on the particular parameters of the situation. To date, researchers have come up with 3 factors affecting the organization, which are 1. Technology, 2. Size, 3. Environment. These factors shall be discussed one after the other over the next few slides. Technology. Technology refers to the knowledge, tools, equipment, and work techniques used by an organization in delivering its product size. There are 2 critical aspects of technology. 1. Complexity. 2. Interdependence. There are also types of technologies: unit and small batch production, large batch and mass production, and continuous process production. I'll take that again. There are also 3 types of technologies: 1. Unit and small batch production. 2. Large batch and mass production. And the third one is the continuous process production. In units and small batch production, products are custom produced to meet customer specifications, or they are made in small quantities by craft specialists. In large batch or mass production, products are manufactured in large quantities, frequently on assembly line. Then the last type of production of technology is the continuous process production. Products are liquids, solids, or gases that are made through a continuous process. The researchers found that increasing complexity was associated with more level of management, that is, a taller structure, more staff personnel per line, workers, and large spans of control at upper management level. The result shows that formalization which is a method of vertical coordination that addresses the degree to which written policies, rules, procedures, etc. specified what actions are to be taken under a given set of circumstances. And centralization, which is a vertical condition relating to the extent to which power and authority are retained at the top organizational level. Both tend to be high in organizations engaged in large batch and mass production technology. This is because the effort of large numbers of workers need to be standardized. In contrast, formalization and centralization were low in organizations using units and small batch, as well as continuous process, where appropriate work decisions must be made at lower level. Moving on to the second factor of contingency theory, we have size. What has size got to do with the going on in an organization? It is interesting to know that Woodward and the team did not find anything definite about their investigation of the possibility of a clear relationship between size and various structural characteristics. Other studies have only succeeded in establishing minimal relationships. The reason for this being because size is just one element in the question. Other important factors such as environment and technology also affect organization structure. Another probable reason may be because size can be measured in various ways, such as gross sales or profits, or by number of employees. These factors make it difficult at times to compare studies. However, 4 trends have been identified by studies of size effect on structures. 1. With growth in size, organizations may add more departments and levels, which by making structures more complex. 2. With growth in size, organizations employ more staff to help top management cope with the expanding size. And the third point is that with organizational growth, more rules and regulations become imperative. This is to assist in achieving vertical coordination. And lastly, as organizations grow larger, they tend to become more decentralized. The last factors of contingency theory is environment. This is the third contingency factors, and environment is to refer to the territory in which human actions occur and as itself modified by human agency. According to some studies carried out on the effect of environment on organizational structure, the studies covered 20 British firms. They found that the firms had different structural characteristics depending on whether they operated in a stable environment with relatively little change over time, or an unstable environment with rapid change and uncertainty. The study also came up with two types of environments, namely mechanistic and organic organizational environment. Mechanistic organization is the organization in hierarchical. Mechanistic organization is the organization that is hierarchical and bureaucratic. It is characterized by its 1. Highly centralized authority, 2. Formalized procedure and practice, 3. Specialized functions. Mechanistic organization is relatively easier and simpler to organize, but rapid change is very challenging. Contrast to organic organization. Organic organization is characterized by the following: 1. Flatness, communications and interaction are horizontal. 2. Low specialization, knowledge resides wherever it is most useful. 3. Decentralization, great deal of formal and informal participation in decision making. Contingency approaches to leadership and management behavior. Contribution of Fedler. Fedler, 1967, developed a contingency theory of leadership effectiveness. It is called a contingency model because the leadership effectively is particularly contingent upon three variables. These variables are discussed as follows. 1. The leader-member relations. The extent to which the leader is accepted by the group. Where the leaders and his group get along, the leader has greater influence than where he is disliked. The second variable is the task structure, the degree to which the task is structured or unstructured. The more the task is structured, the easier it is for the manager to lead and get compliance from his group. In contrast, unstructured task calls for more creative leaders and make leading much more difficult. And last variable is the leader's position, that is, the leader's formal power provided for that position by the former organization. The more power a manager has to reward or punish, the more influence he will equally have. Lush and Lawrence concluded thus, rather than searching for a panacea of the one best way to organize under all conditions, investigators have more tended to examine the functioning of organizations in relation to the needs of their particular members and the external pressures facing them. Contribution from Robert Tenenbaum and Warren Two Schmitz. These two authors in 1958 wrote an article entitled How to Choose a Leadership Pattern. In their commentary, they stated how they felt the article could be updated to take into consideration conditions which were not present or which they had omitted when the article was first written. Their statement verifies the fact that management theories can and should be altered to allow for changing conditions. Since people are changing their needs and expectations, management theories should equally be altered to take these changes into consideration. Contingency theory and appraisal of contingency theory. Contributions of the contingency theory. Robert, a contingency theorist, even submits that modern contingency theory provided an increasing amount of empirical research. It defines variables ignored in earlier work and it directs the attention of manager to the contingencies to be considered in the design of organization structure. Other contributions of contingency theory are the basic concept of the contingency theory help manager to develop a more thorough understanding of complex situations and to take appropriate action. Another contribution from contingency theory is that though contingency theory has its limitations, it has, however, provided a further insight into our understanding of relationships among factors influencing the structures, management, and operations of work organization. Then limitations of contingency theory. Some limitations of contingency theory are 1. Causal relationships, 2. Organizational performance, 3. Independent variables, 4. Multiple contingencies, 5. Planned change, and lastly power factors and timing of organizational change. Explaining these limitations one after the other, starting with the causal relationship. Most contingency models imply a causal relationship between structures as an intervening variables and performance as a dependent variables. This relationship is open to question. Then another limitation is organizational structure. Contingency model argues that there is a fit among components of organizations and situations variables is related to maximizing organizational performance, but organizational performance is multifaceted. Then another limitations of contingency theory is independence variable. The supposed status of the independent contingent variables as the given and beyond the control of members of the organization is open to question. An organization may influence their environment through advertising or political pressures. Then another limitation of contingency theory is multiple contingencies. Organizations face multiple contingencies and there is potential for multi-way relationships among the range of organizational variables. Thank you for listening. We've come to the end of today's lectures. Hope to see you in the next class. Have a good day.